Welcome to Minerva, a monthly show where we discuss the mysteries. We'd like to give you enough information that you can go away and do your own study. Today, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Duncan.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about Rosslyn Chapel. Now, this is something that we really go backwards and forwards.
Both of us are well on this, though.
We are indeed. Rosslyn Chapel essentially was built in the 15th century. And it's in Rosslyn, which is a small town just outside of Edinburgh. About 20 minutes, half an hour drive outside of Edinburgh. Essentially, it's a very small chapel on a hilltop that's incredibly ornately carved.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful setting, and it's often referred to as Bible in stone. It's there are lots of carvings amongst there which have religious but other significations as well, which we'll go into. It took about 40 years to actually build Rosslyn Chapel as well, so it can tell from such a small building they've put a lot of time and effort into it. It has been linked to absolutely everything. So we go back to our old friends, the Knights Templar.
Hey!
But we also have, is this the resting place of the Holy Grail?
Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant are there.
Mary Magdalene, is she buried under there?
Mary Magdalene being buried under there. And of course, the major thing for Rosslyn Chapel was it was featured in the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. And as soon as that happened, it really became a tourist centre.
Yeah.
And still is to this day. So you have big coach loads of tourists coming from all over the world to come and see this beautiful place, which over time has sort of gone into disrepair really, and there were parts of its history where it was really bad, but now they've really looked after it, and it should be safe for a number of years to continue. So let's get into the nitty gritty.
Oh, yes, let's.
Masonic narratives.
Right, okay.
There are lots of religious symbols, so on some of the arches around, you'll see parts of the Bible depicted, which are quite common in churches.
Yes, yes.
But there are also places within Rosslyn that people believe there are Masonic symbols.
Which, and it's so easy and quick to, I think, understandable to do it, because of course it's linked very much to the Sinclair family.
Yes.
Who are the Grand Masters for Scottish Freemasonry for centuries, the founders at sort of part. So to be encouraged or to expect to see Masonic parallels there is, from this first stage, understandable.
Yeah.
It's tempting from one point, because one of the most defining features, I think, of the chapel is it has three pillars. When you step into three pillars at the far end, and we both know Masonically, three pillars is. It's been a part of the symbolism for centuries. And one of the unique qualities from an architectural point of view is normally you go to any church, every pillar is the same. They use the same design for it. Here are three pillars, each completely different.
Yeah.
And so it is so easy to look at that as a Masonic statement. The question would be to understand, I think more than anything, what we're actually looking at is not a full chapel. It is only the wing of something that was going to be a lot bigger.
It was due to be much, much bigger.
So although it would still be unique to have three different designs of those three pillars, technically they would have been mirrored by what would have been the opposite nave. And we know it was meant to be bigger, not just because of the plans, but they actually set out the foundations for the other part of the temple. So that's the first thing. It's a case of, yes, it's nice. It doesn't throw out the concept of being Masonic because of the three pillars, but it does raise a doubt of how significant were they actually intentionally. So I'll cover that bit first.
I mean, if you go along, and I've been a number of times, the tour guide will take you around. They often tell you the story of the apprentice pillar.
Yeah.
And essentially there was a master builder at Rosslyn who was, as all masters are, continuously learning, and went over to Italy to learn some more of his craft and to learn stonemasonry in a lot more detail. And while he was over there learning, a brilliant apprentice was working on the site and carved this incredibly ornate pillar.
Yeah.
Which it is. It's beautiful. And then the guy comes back from Italy and he's enraged that somebody's taken on his project and done such a great thing. And he grabs a mallet and he smacks him over the head and kills him.
Yeah.
Now, for those people that understand the Masonic story of Hiram Abiff, there are some real parallels.
For the sense of the injury.
Yeah, with the sense of the injury and etc. So, is this somebody telling the Masonic story in a strange way? Is this just a myth, or could this have actually happened?
Well, there is talk of, if you look at I get the words right, I think it's connoisseurs, where there's, up on the roof point, there's I think it's 8 markings, and there's one that's meant to have the apprentice with the dent in his head.
Dent in his head, that's right.
Right, I think there's certain things we need to cover. One, at the moment, those 3 pillars are called the apprentice, the journeyman, which is equivalent of the fellowcraft, and the master mason pillar.
Yeah.
But those titles are only first recorded from the 1800s.
Right, okay.
Which is several centuries after they were actually carved. Originally, they were called the Earl's pillar, the Shinka pillar, and the Prince's pillar. Did I say Earl? Earl and Princess. Yeah. They have no reference to Freemasonry at all.
Not at all, no.
The curious thing part is that middle pillar, the Shinka pillar, which is with the other 2 understandable phrases, or not maybe understandable, but familiar terms. The middle pillar is, if I'm right, I believe it's the Shinka, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrongly, but is it meant to be about the essence of God? But it's the female essence of God, which I find fascinating. You know me, I'm not a great fan of the...
No, you're not, no. Of the sacred feminine in that sense,
I'm not sexist or anything like that, but it just doesn't do it for me. But I do think it's fascinating that you have those 3 pillars.
And quite rare.
Oh, God, yeah, exactly. I've never heard those descriptions of pillars at all, but they predate the Masonic ones that have been attributed to it.
Okay.
Long before the Masonic story. Actually, long before even the Hiram Abiff legend actually entered Masonic history.
Yeah.
But the other part, and you've already hinted on it beforehand, you say that we know it's in the same... We've both visited independently, actually. We've never visited
it together.
Not together,
no.
But I think both of us have gone to it when it had no scaffolding on it, and now it's got the scaffolding drying out the stone.
Yeah.
And we know that there's a lot of rework being done to it. But that's not the first time. Again, I think it's the mid-1800s, the stone was eroded. A lot of the work had gone. And so a lot of the carvings we're seeing today are not the original ones. They are ones done, again, in the 1800s by a guy who was actually a Freemason.
There we go.
So it was a stonemason, had to be a Freemason. So what's he going to do in homage to, this is the chapel for the Sinclair family, top of the Masonic order. Hello, homage, it's got a dent in his head. This guy, I'm going to show certain parts of his body in a certain way. I'm sorry, we're not looking at the original carvings.
No,
so I can't jump as much.
I mean, the 2 that jump out inside the chapel, as you sort of walk through the first door, right opposite you is a horse with 2 men on it, which is often attributed to the Knights Templar.
Yeah.
And then there's another one on the outside where it looks like a Masonic initiation. It's a man with a noose around his neck, and his clothing looks like it's loose, shall we say.
Yeah.
But again, do you think that was a play later on that somebody
I definitely think it's a play later on. I don't want to disparage the concept, because there's another lovely one. Do you know, the weirdest thing is, and I don't know if it's... when I went the very first time, I thought I saw it twice, which is the King of Terrors tablet. There was one that was downstairs, because there's the bottom crypt part. Actually, tell a lie, it's not the crypt, is it?
No, it's not the crypt, but it's
the lower temple, the lower chapel.
Yeah.
And there used to be, I don't know if it's still there, there was a slab there which had the King of Terrors on, which is a phrase that some Masons know.
Is that the one with the skeleton?
That's right, and and I'm sure there was one outside as well, but I think when I went later, the one that was downstairs was then outside, and I couldn't find the other one where it used to be. But there are these phrases in there which are resonant to Masonic terms. But again, we're looking at something attributed a lot later than Rosslyn Chapel was there. Because that's the other part. Rosslyn Chapel, it gets misinterpreted in the sense of what that actually means.
Go on.
All right, okay.
Go on.
I thought you were going to... Because so often we hear from the Da Vinci Code and the other parts about the Rose Line.
Yes.
One going through Paris, the idea of...
essentially like a ley line that goes around the world and it travels through certain very important places.
Exactly. And because, of course, it's Rosslyn Chapel, people think, oh, see, it's another thing. It's the Rose line going all the way through. The thing is, it's in Scotland. It's going to be Celtic. Look at the Celtic one. It's actually a rocky mount or cliff edge and a stream or fast-moving water, which, again, is a lovely Masonic reference.
Of course.
But Rosslyn, as in how it's in the Celtic, which is in Scotland, is more likely actually going to be it's a rocky ledge and water, because it's actually named after the village, isn't it?
It is.
And the village is Rosslyn, and it's got nothing to do with Roseline. It's a village on a rocky knoll with water going past. So, sorry, imagery, you're on.
One of the wacky theories, one of the craziest theories, is that there are cube boxes along the ceiling. And I've seen them elsewhere. I'm sure I've seen them elsewhere, but they really stick out in Rosslyn, and some people have attributed them to either some type of cipher which needs to be decoded or musical notes.
Yeah.
Now the music's been made, so somebody has actually gone to the trouble of making the music, and it sounds quite interesting. But anything in that, or are we just going to throw that out?
I'm just going to throw it out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's because I'm not that musical, but I mean, if you pace, each of them are paced equally apart.
Yeah.
Equally apart, you're going to have a rhythm. It's going to be there, but the idea of a stone on a curve, and I remember reading I found quite interesting. There was some megalithic sites again, I think, up in the Hebrides, where they were saying about how you could make a rhythm sound within the stone walls, and the sound and the beat really got a thing on the heartbeat. And I kind of like the idea. But a code for these connoisseurs that go around the temple no.
Another theory, we'll just keep going because there's so many with them. But we'll go with another one.
What's the next one?
The maize and corn.
Oh, yeah, no.
So depicted there is, it looks like maize, it looks like the plant, or it looks like corn. And yet, when that was carved, it was 50 years before Columbus found America. So there was really no way to know, because that plant is indigenous to the Americas. And there was no way for them to have known of that. So how did that come to fruition? How did they know that? Was this something that goes into our Oak Island discussions, as whether or not the Knights Templar were bringing things backwards and forwards from Oak Island to Scotland and sharing knowledge and sharing these plants? And of course, because that was something really special and potentially seen as sacred, they may have depicted that in the church, or is it something else?
Well, I think, to be honest, it is something else quite literally. People say this is maize corn, and I look at it and think, I'm sorry, it doesn't look like maize corn. It feels to me like the Emperor's New Clothes sort of thing. I was like, it's maize corn, it's maize corn. I'm really sorry, I've seen maize corn, and that doesn't look like maize corn. It's short, it's stubby, it has, you could look at a abstract picture of a bluebell, and it's, it's not that far off it. I see a pattern. I don't see maize corn. I know there's a story of, I'm sure if it's the Sinclair family again, or a relation of a guy who's meant to have made a journey going through North Scotia ways, which is always interesting with the Oak Island story. But that very first statement, that looks like maize corn. That does not look like maize corn to me. And it's a jump.
Well, there is one big question left which we haven't discussed, and that is, what is in the crypt?
What's expected to be in a crypt?
Well,
dead bodies. I'm sorry. It's I know everyone says, we've got ultrasound going down and there's a cavern. Of course there's a cavern under there. The whole thing was built for the Sinclair families of the area to get buried. Yeah. And so, of course, the first bit they're going to build, look, he's dying, right, put him in there. They built the pyramids for the same sort of reason. Let's just bury him in there. And so the very reason it's called a crypt is because it's for dead people. I'm sorry,
You don't think the Holy Grail is buried underneath, or the Ark of the Covenant, or any of these things?
Well, definitely not the Ark of the Covenant, because my theories on that. I don't believe the thing ever existed.
That's true.
Apologies to it. Grail, that's going to have the conversation another time, because of course we're going to have to go in a sense of
what is the Holy Grail?
If it's a lineage and we believe that the Sinclair family is linked to the lineage, then I'm not going to get done on a technicality of because he is a Sinclair family, he is technically the part of the Grail, but I don't believe that other way. But anyway, it's no, if we're looking for a actual physical relic, of even like a treasure thing. Like if we're looking at any, even if it was Templar gold. No, I'm sorry. If it was, it would be accessible. Yes. It would be something that even if you had something that sacred, you would have a way to get it to protect it. If you say, right, okay, look, we're going to be this is, what was it? We say again, 15th century?
Yeah, 15th century.
So we're still looking at concepts of invasion. We're still looking like the British coming up and taking bits and pieces. If there is risk of something so valuable being there, you would have a way of getting to it to get it out. And whatever in there is sealed. You're not expecting the dead to rise and say, it's sealed.
Yeah. Well, I still like to believe. I still like to believe that.
Can we just have that at the Packard now? Yeah, at the show. I don't believe him.
I really do like to believe that Rosslyn just has a special feeling to me, and that
I can't deny. Yeah,
it's a beautiful place, and I just think there's something there, but potentially there's something there that we haven't even thought of. There could be something very special buried in those crypts, and there's supposedly 2 vaults that we can see from surveys. So what do the Sinclair family do? They've got the choice. They can either open them up and claim all the glory of what they find, or they can open them up, find nothing, and all the tourists go away.
There's the wonderful thing of it's under the crypt. There's a subterranean crypt. We're up on a mountain there.
But I think once, while the people are still going and people are still interested in the building, there's no chance of them opening it.
Oh, I quite agree. It's too much of a, excuse the phrase, cash cow to actually do it. But taking all that cynicism out, you've already said it, and I completely agree. It's an incredible place to go and visit, to walk around the river bit at the bottom, up to the castle side, and no matter what the intention was, the engravings, the intensity was such. You kind of think, why did it take so long to build? It's quite a small chapel, but until you see the engraving on it, it is phenomenal. And even we know that Freemasonry has developed over a long time. What we practice, well, even if you look at like the 18th century, we have quite rudimentary rituals at the beginning and very ornate ones at the end. Yeah. We have adopted so many symbols to support what Freemasonry has become. And the symbolism that you see at Rosslyn Chapel, even if it wasn't intentional, I would say is supportive of what Freemasonry is. So for a Freemason, I would say, even though I don't believe in any of the bits and pieces, it's still a place to pilgrimage to go, because
definitely
just to see it, to put your own mark on, even if it's somebody else's symbol, your own mark on it, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, this will, as it has done over the centuries, rage on and on and on, and hopefully at some point we'll find some more information, but it's such a beautiful place that I think you should definitely go and visit if you get the opportunity. Thank you very much for watching. This has been something we've wanted to do for a long time.
Oh, we have, yeah.
And so thank you very much for watching this episode. Please like and comment and let us know what you think is buried in the vault at Rosslyn Chapel. Thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.